I'm doing quite well, Shane. It is makes me very happy that you can have so much excitement every time you introduce me, even though we've done this 130 something times.
This is the 140th and the 139th episode. It is.
It's both. I guess you could say it's both. And we are recording both on the same day.
We recorded earlier this morning, had a great guest in. I can't wait for you guys to hear her story, her optimism, her fire. She's one of my favorite people. Yeah. Deborah Williams will be on the show.
We, in that show, and the reason we're not talking about it today, we talk about Matt Bevin, the Republican governor of Kentucky, no longer being the Republican governor of Kentucky, and how that happened, and, the analysis from both sides.
That was a fun talk.
It was.
And there's still so much
They're all wrong.
They're all wrong.
But before we get into that, I would like to give a shout out to our latest patron. I forgot. Man, I am such a bad actor.
Oh man, that's our first, hopefully, sponsor someday. No, that'd be cool to get these guys.
Who are these guys?
This is Gate City. It's actually here in Atlanta. Gate City Brewery. They have this thing called an Indian Pale Lager.
It's in Roswell.
Yeah, huh. Indian Pale Lager. So not an Indian Pale Ale. So up front, if you guys are beer guys, it's citrusy, and it's got a great smell. It's got a lot of hop to it, but then the finish is not bitter. It's smooth, and you sit there and you go, well, yeah, Indian Pale Lager makes perfect sense to me. What do you think? Your first time having it, right?
First time having it. It is not bad. I wouldn't say it's not bitter at the end. I like the bitterness of beer. Like, I actually like the taste of beer.
Yeah.
Which apparently some people find that weird.
But tell you,
it's definitely a little hoppy. It's like half an IPA, I'd say.
Yeah. You speaking of beers here in Atlanta, I found these other guys down here. I think it's something Leap. Golly.
Leap is a really cool group. Law Enforcement Against Prohibition.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's we need to find somebody from there to come on too. But
there's two of them who are here locally in Atlanta. They're the ones who introduced me to the show. To the show, to their group. Okay. Two former LA cops, actually.
Huh. I think it's Wild Leap.
Wildlife
Brew Company down here?
Maybe. I've never heard of it.
It's got a buffalo on the can, and it's really...
Yeah. Oh, I've had their stuff.
Dude.
It's quite good.
Gate City, I didn't know either one of these guys were breweries here in Atlanta. You think of small breweries in Atlanta, and you think of, Sweetwater, which is no longer a small brewery by any stretch. I remember going down there and having some really different, great beer, young, in my, I don't know, mid-20s sometime, I imagine. It is some of the first times I ever went down there. But, obviously it's grown. You got Red Brick down here and all that fun stuff now. But I'll tell you what, man, the beer market out there, it's anything you ever wanted and a lot of crap you didn't want. But this is at the top. It's good stuff.
Very cool. You want to get into some interesting...
Tariffs?
What I would call not news. So this is not something that's been like a headline. This is not something that people are paying attention to, unfortunately. We've talked about tariffs before, and we've argued why they're bad, right?
Yeah.
They increase the price for everybody, and that money goes to the government, who misuses it, as we know, to do stupid things all the way up to horrible things.
And it's so much imaginary, created, fictional nonsense. Like when you just step back and you see what it is, and I'll hit that point after. You're the one that wanted to talk about tariffs.
So this is because some people argue that tariffs are good.
Sure.
And the way they argue it, I would say that those tariffs are very close to an act of war. Sanctions are an act of war. Tariffs are kind of an act of war on the people. It steals money from producers somewhere else and steals money from consumers here.
Wait.
If you're talking about America.
It steals. Who steals?
The government.
In between them, right?
Yeah.
The government on both sides, right?
Well, sometimes on both sides, sometimes on just on one. It depends. But for the most part, if you average it out, yes, all countries have these tariffs, so they're stealing from both sides of peaceful interactions.
So their government sucks. Our government sucks because they're stealing from them. Ours are stealing from us. And really, that's what it's just... Hey, we're going to get a piece of this, guys, one way or another. We're these assholes in the middle, and somehow, some way, when Bob wants to trade with Joe, only his name isn't Joe anymore because they're not in the same county because he's on the other side of the world because we've got amazing trade and transfer in terms of time and space these days, right? His name is, I don't know, Jafar instead of Joe. Who the hell are these other two guys?
So the reason I think it's in some ways even more like insidious is because it's not like usual taxes where they're like, well, the government needs to run, so we need to take some of this from your paycheck, from when you buy like chips at the store. This is, we're doing this to protect you. We're doing this to attack the bad guys. Like all these different arguments that a lot of people, in my opinion, unfortunately, buy into and protect ardently, especially when their guy does it.
So we've already established Jafar and Joe, right? And these guys in the middle are stealing from them. No matter who they are, they're stealing from them. Mm-hmm. Both of them. So how do we make this acceptable? That's the question.
Well, you can't make it acceptable if you're starting from the premise of a completely acceptable thing that cannot happen unless all parties are voluntarily interacting.
That's
right?
Exactly where I'm going, right?
And sometimes there's a lot of parties within the chain line, right? You've got distributors, you've got middlemen who transform the metal into, I know, grommets, and the people who put the grommets on
You've got people who are actually
signs.
you got people who are actually in the market, and you don't.
So it's you've got so many people, and if you talk about like things like the iPencil thing that that people, you've got all these people, literally. And I don't use literally that much because it's most of the time not true. Literally, every single person who's, if you take out the government within that infrastructure,
they're essential.
So millions of people, none of them are being coerced.
Right.
None of them are sent.
And here's the other thing is they're all essential, right? Without one of those people,
you got no pencil.
You got nothing to market, right? I mean, that's the thing is concept to market. There's not anything that most people are trying to waste along there anywhere. So the way we make that situation that we've described as where the government starts fleecing these people for money, taking it by force, the only way you make that acceptable, to answer my own question, is fear. You have to make those guys over there the boogeyman. You got to tell
fearful of something more than having money stolen from them.
Yeah. No. Hey guys, listen. This is why we're doing this. Those guys over there, they believe in a God that's different from your God. Well, and that God teaches this, and this God teaches.
So the thing with this, I think they deal with even more basic things, because this has to do with jobs and money, right? And it's like those people are stealing from you. China, however Trump says it, China.
I thought you were trying to say it like somebody who was Chinese.
Oh no, I would never do that. That'd be racist.
China.
And the good thing about voluntary transactions, right? And this was literally 100% voluntary.
You said it again, literally.
Oh, I say literally weird. Apparently, I learned that the other day.
I'm just kidding.
I didn't know this. I think it's Kelly. I hope I said it many times and made you smile. But is that involuntary transactions, if something is not going as one person would, or somebody thinks that they can do it better in another system, they just go and leave. And the competition there creates something great. So the reason I wanted to recap why tariffs are bad, in my opinion, is because I have an example, thanks to an awesome YouTuber, of why even if you support tariffs, even if you buy into the whole China is bad and we need to wage a trade war, and some of you might even, who are more logical, say, hey, there are short-term negative ramifications, but it's for a long-term good. You cannot support tariffs in this current example, which is how all tariffs are applied. And of course, if I thought a little bit about it, I could have said, okay, how bad can the government do things? And because my mind is primed for that, okay, I can come up with a bunch of examples, but I was not aware of them. So this guy that I follow on YouTube, his name is Louis Rossmann. He has about 1 million subscribers on YouTube. I will link the whole video here. And if you're interested in it, there's a bunch of other videos. He repairs Macs. He lives in New York, and all he does is repair MacBooks and iPhones and stuff like this. And he criticizes Apple all the time.
I think we've actually talked about this guy before.
I might have mentioned
a while
before.
back, man. Because you were really, really upset with Apple after they went after this guy in court.
Yes. Because the time I mentioned was about kind of tariffs. It's about customs, which is kind of related
protection.
To where he would import non-branded screens that are made by the same factory that Apple makes them, except Apple hasn't gotten them and put their little logo on there.
They don't own them outright.
And customs would steal his tens of thousands of dollars worth of screens because intellectual property.
Sure.
Or because intellectual fantasy idea. And just steal all his money. So, I mean, that's pretty bad. But he does repairs, does videos about them in a very amateurish way. He's like, I like his honesty. I don't repair Apples. I'm not that into the industry, but
in the market.
I enjoy watching his videos and hear him talk about things that I don't understand, chipsets and so forth.
Oh, wait, you enjoy learning something?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Even if I don't do it, it's quite interesting. If you're weird like me, I think you'll like him.
Love those
because he's just very honest. He cusses a lot. Shane would love him.
Am I doing some editing in this one?
No, there's actually none. I don't think.
Wow. Okay.
He does it for good reasons.
I was just getting ready to pick up my pen here.
But he's talking today about how he sells some stuff on his website. He sells some training. He sells some products, and he was like, I've got this product that I wanted to sell, and I've got some clips to illustrate just disgustingness. Doesn't matter if you agree with tariffs. Listen to this, because the tool that you think is doing good is perverted as hell. First clip. Instead of having multiple clips that re-roll the ad, I'm just doing from one YouTube video, so I have to actually click. Your internet's
and I got a bill for over $1,000 from the importer, and they said this is covered by a 25% tariff. I was confused by this because the government's website said there was no tariff. Now, what wound up happening is apparently they list where the tariff is on many different sections. So if I want to go to this website, it's not going to show me all the tariffs. For new tariffs, rather than amending the old website or amending the old list or changing this database, there will be a new list that shows you all the new items that have tariffs.
So that's just a quick intro. And from a moral stance, you can already make the argument right here. He wants to sell these new microscopes. He had seen people ordering the microscopes that were the same company that he used, but the new version. And apparently they had skimped and made it kind of crappy, right? And he was like, the only thing that's crappy about it is that they had made the head of the microscope too large, and so for seeing it with your eye, you could see a good picture. But if you're taking pictures of the microscopes, you could show people that the image quality was bad. So he's like, that's a $10 part. And so he went and searched and found the right microscope to sell people. He was going to order some, sell them on his website, and he realized that he could make a profit doing that. And he looked and searched to see if there were some tariffs on here. No tariffs. And then, bam, he gets a surprise bill for $1,000 because of a 25% tariff, which we heard about. This was like end of last year. Trump put in a new China tariff for 25% on metal and crap.
Right.
Or maybe on all Chinese products of some certain type. So he's like, well, damn.
Well, all right. And that's
like, why should the government get another $1,000 to protect us from China when somebody wants to sell them to somebody else? Like, there's just no logic there.
And I think you just nailed it, even inadvertently, Banks. Is like
nothing's inadvertent.
You say, Trump put a tax on, this, or maybe it was, this metal or whatever. The arbitrariness of where they associate monetary value to tax something, or an industry to tax something, it's so arbitrary and hit and miss, and you're guessing. And it's like we've said a million times in the past, if the laws are so numerous and voluminous, basically, that no man can read them or understand them,
or if they change from one day to the next,
or if they're just
then it would be of
so
little avail
ambiguous. You can't do anything about it. You can't touch them. You can't pin them down. You can't say any of them are wrong. You can't call them criminals.
So this story that I have like 7 more clips for it illustrates that perfectly. And the worst part is what it means. Like, why is it like that? It's not like that just for fun and games. There is a reason, an insidious, disgusting, perverted reason of why that exists. And it is the same thing that those who think tariffs are good, because I think a lot of people think tariffs are good because they think they can have a good outcome. They can't.
These guys are the effing mafia, dude.
They're all the things that you hate about government, and that you say you hate about China and them manipulating all this kind of stuff. This is tariffs are doing the same thing that you think China is evil for. Which China is evil for.
This is mafia without principle, right? Like old mafias, they used to be about family and preserving a family, at least. Like, hey, my family's going to survive no matter what. I don't care. You're not going to get in our damn way.
So in this case, who do you think this part of the mafia that they're protecting is?
I think that this government is so big, and maybe there are some families obviously involved.
So no, here there's a specific. I'm not going to give it up because you don't think of it automatically because of the framework the tariffs are put under. But it comes. I think the third clip you'll kind of understand.
I won't waste anybody else's time.
It's not that there's just so many clips that I have here because Louis he's so analytical.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure to listen to him.
Let's hear it.
Even when he rants.
Happy trinocular camera port adapter thing, and let me see if I can find the same thing that they're selling, but something that is a little bit more suitable for what it is I want, which is good camera quality. And I find it. But here's the thing. When the tariff came out, they were able to apply for an exemption because they were already in the business of selling microscopes. I wasn't already in the business of selling microscopes, so I couldn't. So here's the kicker. Not only is there a tariff that wasn't advertised in the government's website, but that is a tariff that the very people who are selling these microscopes probably are not paying. But if you want to start a company selling them, or I want to start a company selling them, we'll pay them. That is the most anti-competitive thing you can imagine.
Damn right.
And the reason that this kind of bothers me, regardless of what you think about politics, regardless of who you vote for, is for many people saying that, the elites have this power and the elites have gotten away with this, that, and the other. I find it really interesting when a law comes out that only negatively affects people who are trying to compete with the established elites. If I want to buy this and I want to sell this and I want to compete with Amazon, there is a good chance that Amazon, it's not just that they're paying less money than I am because they have more buying power, this, that, and the other from the vendor. I get that. But they are actually probably exempt from getting feed by the government where I will get that fee if I decide to purchase this product by the...
So we learn about a new thing that just down the road of how perverted the situation is. And this continues, okay? This continues about 3 or 4 more times of just how bad the situation is. But he's like, okay, so it's not advertised on any government website that I'm going to get this tariff. So I buy a bunch of things, then have this surprise bill, which means I can't make any profit, which means, that's his livelihood, right? Is to make money. Like we all need to make money so we can put food and beer in our gullets.
Yeah.
And then and he never focuses on politics really. So he's quite objective when he's talking. He's like, and it's the same point I made. Like, it's whether you support tariffs or not, this is what you're thinking China is evil for, and this is what you're thinking government in general does wrong. All this does because there's exemptions. So he doesn't get to get the exemption. Why does Amazon get the exemption? Because they have lawyers and people who keep track of this. Probably, and he doesn't say this, they have a lobbyist who made this possible for their lawyers to later get an exemption for.
All right. This subject we're not going to get off of for a minute because I've got a whole other related segment to this that's just popped in my mind since we've started going down this route because it's more it's more compound than what this guy will cover. And I will get into that. You have more clips of this guy.
I do. This goes on and on.
Yeah. Obviously, to sum up what he's saying is basically they're knocking rungs out to entry into the market already. Like you can't get in at the same place where other people get in that have money, that had the money to have lobbyists knock the rungs out so that nobody else could even challenge them.
Yeah.
For market space.
So, and he's kind of addressing the people who think tariffs are a good idea. He's like, first thing, it's not advertised.
Yeah.
So he wasted a bunch of his time and then got a bunch of money taken and made no money because that's all his margin, right?
Yeah.
First thing. Second thing is, if you like tariffs, but then you give people exemptions, Well, your tariffs aren't doing anything except apparently stealing his money.
Oh, well, and you're taking care of your boys, right?
Well, that's like the third. That's like the third thing, Shane. If you just wouldn't like say my list before, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so it's first thing, like it's not even advertised. Like, why should we? If this is to protect America, why should we hurt Americans by being so secretive? Second thing, why should we? Apparently, if we want this to be a tool to fight China, why should we make ourselves less powerful by being like, oh, well, some people are exempt, so.
I'll tell you what, you people out there in YouTube land, if you're looking for clips
YouTube land.
on tariffs, this is one of these shows that will absolutely set fire on the internet. If you're looking for something that people will absolutely debate till they're blue in the face, this is going to shut all that down.
Yeah, bring people who disagree with us in here and have them put nasty comments in the YouTube.
Can't wait. Wait.
Please. I would love it.
So far in this discussion of just stating fact, this is what the government does. This is how it is. This is how basic.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the government sent him a bill. He actually shows it in the video. The government gives exceptions, but wait on, it gets worse.
For that.
Oh, there's a chick talking now. She is a kind of government expert that helps companies like handle tariffs and get out of stuff and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Is how the Trump administration, the president's administration, has implemented this. So there is a difference between an administrative action, which is changes in rules and procedures for how a government agency is going to conduct its operations, and some kind of law which applies, or trade agreement which applies tariffs broadly. So in this specific case, Trump used Trump, not himself, but Trump's administration used Section 301, which is a specific aspect of the 1974 Trade Act, which authorizes the
So, very interesting, and I have a constitutional question for you. The first thing that she mentions is that not all tariffs are equal. Some tariffs are passed by Congress, and some tariffs are passed bureaucratically.
Okay.
Already, I see a problem there. Even if you're, again, a supporter of tariffs, do you want to give unilateral power to a bureaucracy to enact whatever? Shouldn't it at least be debated about if tariffs exist? I assume some tariffs are good and some tariffs are bad. Don't you want at least some debate on there? Because if not, that's called a dictatorship. We currently, if you don't think the whole government is a dictatorship, we currently have tariff dictatorship because Trump's administration gets to randomly decide to apply any tariff for basically any reason per the, as she said, Section 301 of the 1974 Trade Act. Now, this 1974 Trade Act says the president may take all appropriate action, including tariff-based and non-tariff-based retaliation, to obtain the removal of any act, policy, or practice of a foreign government that violates an international trade agreement or is unjustified, unreasonable, or discriminatory, or that burdens and restricts U.S. commerce. Now, I don't know if you caught that there, and I'm reading from the Wikipedia page. That is the most broad sentence I have ever freaking heard. Usually, what we're supposed to have is a constitution that is pretty specific, right?
Yeah.
Like it says you're allowed to do these 8 things and everything else you're not allowed to do.
It's enumerated. Is the words of the people who wrote it. Enumerated.
And the things that get to be decided are within those enumerations already, and then they get to be debated, most of the important stuff, by the body that's closest to the people, which is Congress, right?
Yeah. And what isn't in there? What isn't in the delegated powers?
Tariffs aren't in there, so
abstract and ambiguous nonsense.
How abstract is all appropriate action? Who gets to decide what's appropriate if it's not specified? Apparently, the president gets just to do anything he thinks is appropriate.
Let's answer your question. Who gets to define that? The government gets to define that.
Yeah.
That's like the government investigating the government.
And then to give them a little bit more leeway, they use multiple things. Anything that's unjustified, unreasonable, or discriminatory, or that burdens or restricts U.S. commerce. Discriminatory, unreasonable, unjustified. Again, like these broad words like, woo.
Wait.
Woo!
The same government that discriminates against its own people?
Yeah.
maybe people don't even understand that there are programs for people inside the U.S. government that largely depend on your victimhood status, right? It's all, I mean, if you're looking up, how to get into the government business, how to receive funds from the government business, if you understand how to play the game and you can find your combat wounded Eskimo woman who's got all sorts of disabilities, right? You just won the damn lottery.
Well, there's two types. There's people with what I could call a so-called victimhood. Not that nobody is ever a victim of things. And then there's people who have made victims of everybody else.
Sure.
And here we're talking about those. Like, I'm not saying that everybody who works for Amazon is evil, but there's somebody here, a lawyer, bunch of lawyers, who are putting together something that I think that they know deep down in their little souls that this is evil.
Well, not only that, but every time it goes to a court, the state can win.
Well, yeah, because they made the argument already.
The state can win. It's fixed.
And this was passed by Congress.
Sure was.
Just like the War Powers Act.
Yeah.
They have abdicated their responsibility and said the president can basically do whatever he wants when it comes to tariffs. And it actually says tariff-based and non-tariff-based retaliation. I don't know what that freaking means. It actually means anything. It's like tariffs or anything else.
Yeah, whatever.
So this is the
tariff or non-tariff based.
And it's got some examples here. And one example was a unilateral trade sanctions. I guess that's what they mean, non-tariff based. This is just a sanction, like banning something, that was issued in 2001 on Ukraine, which was not a World Trade Organization member yet, by imposing a prohibitive.
You got it. Prohibitive, man. You got it.
Tariff on metals, footwear, and other imports because the USTR, the U.S. Trade Relations Organization, concluded that the country had failed to enact legislation to enforce copyright in retaliation to music CDs and their export. So what they did is they saw all the metals that are used to make CDs. They put a prohibitive tariff on that, basically banning the export because nobody can make a living off of it anymore. So that Ukraine couldn't sell CDs in America because Americans were pirating music.
Wow.
Like, that's what they're using it for, which we'll get to IP in like a deep discussion of IP one day, but this is what they're using it for, because they didn't want me to get Linkin Park off of the internet, off of LimeWire when I was a teenager, I guess. Yeah, I was a teenager, and give it to my friends.
Crazy. Good Lord. We are so much worse off than the people that founded this country in terms of when you look at, what's replaced everything, and like, forget about your current nomenclature. Like back in the day, you had governors of states, usually appointed by British rule, like the crown, right? So you had a governor of a colony still have a governor.
Yeah, colonies, not states, I guess, at that point.
We're basically a colony these days. We're not a state. We're not independent of the federal government. God, look at all the money that we get from these guys. But when you look at, okay, now the governors and that system reported to who? The feds, right? Mm-hmm. In a lot of ways, the representatives and the senators have way, way, way more power than even governors do sometimes. Like the way they flow down the money, right? The way they flow down the money.
As a whole, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it looks identical. And now...
I mean, that's in lots of budgets. You've got these systems where it's like, okay, 65% of the budget is already made because it's all these mandates and so forth.
So look back in time, right? The House of Lords and the House of Commons in the UK, they had money flown out into their governors. That's it. Now, when you look up one more step to the executive, replace that with a crown. Does our crown change out a little more often than some? Sure. But where does the real power lie back in the day? It didn't lie with the people. People were really upset at the whole, taxation without representation thing, right? Hey, these guys are making decisions for our lives overseas somewhere. That's ridiculous.
While taking our money.
And so the fact that bureaucrats, unelected government officials can sit there and basically play God with the entire country. They can stick around longer than anybody.
Well, it's very governmental because you should often hear the government creates problems and then the solutions are often worse than the problem itself. So this is why good intentions can go in the wrong way if you don't pay attention. The intention is, taxation without representation. If you're going to take our stuff, at least we should have some kind of say over who you are.
Yeah.
But the negative consequence of that is people were sold that was a solution. What is the solution to that? No, even if they weren't taking anything, people shouldn't be allowed to infringe on your basic liberties, which is to trade with somebody wherever they are, as long as it's voluntary and not hurting anybody.
Never, ever, ever be able to take money or time or property from another person.
I still think it might have been it's the evolution of culture, I guess, because that's what's really, so there's been more tools that the government uses to control our lives more.
Mm-hmm.
What's really changed then, if you take out the supposed freedom we won, is kind of culture. Culture has decided that, well, maybe government isn't allowed to say that they by manifest destiny, they just are over your life. Like that would be for the most part. I know. I know.
Oh yeah, nice.
Quest, we love you. And so at least it's a culture. It's changed. It's not really the government. Government will probably always be just this entity that wants more and more power. And since it has more and more tools to enslave us, so forth. A few more clips. Let me see.
Okay.
2 more. And as I said, it gets better and better. Dun, 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 dun. Sorry. Do you want to distract people while I find the timestamp real fast?
I'll distract people. Hey, I had something really important that popped up earlier, by the way, and I've been waiting to tell you because you brought it up and you're like, oh, yeah, you remember you had that surprise for me. So I've been a little bit under the weather since I came back from Canada.
Oh, yes.
And
Shane has apparently a miracle cure for sore throat, which is my least favorite thing ever. I hate sore throats. I prefer to have like a runny nose. I prefer to have like a headache. I prefer to like break my arm.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I'm exaggerating.
No.
But what is the miracle
So
cure?
I was laying in bed last night and I was like, God, this sucks. And we hadn't gone to sleep. Lights out, we're trying. And, as soon as your mind's not on, something else, and now you're trying to just like, I'm tired. I want to pass out. Meredith goes, hey, what's a good cure for that I hear is marshmallows.
Huh.
I was like, what are you talking
For sore throats?
Yeah. I was like, I literally said, you're so full of. And she's like, no, really. And so after, I was like, all right, I'm going to try like for 5 more minutes. And if I don't, start fading off, I'm getting up. I didn't go 2 minutes, man. 2 minutes, I got up and walked my butt out to the pantry, grabbed a marshmallow, unstuck it from the rest of the
Like a big
pack.
one?
Yeah, big one. And we have a s'mores kit in this family. We have a little fire pit out back. Anyway, I just grabbed that sucker, threw it in my mouth. And I was like, all right, I'm going to chew this thing up. I'm going to let it dissolve. And I'm going to grab one more just to say I gave it a fair chance even, because this is bull.
That's very nice of you.
I was out within 5 minutes. I went back in bed.
So it helped you sleep or it helped alleviate the pain?
It helped absolutely get rid of the whole like feeling of like that icky, scratchy, tuggy feeling in the back of your throat.
Huh.
Yeah. And I was just like, I woke up this morning and I was in disbelief. I was like, Meredith, the marshmallow works. Anyway, this commercial brought to you by Jet Puff Marshmallows. I'm just kidding.
I have found the timestamp.
Okay.
Here we go.
I now have included this. This wasn't there before. Do you know how I actually managed to navigate this? I went around and I found a private website by some international trade, customs, and export law firm. And I went out and I downloaded their lists, which are, I'm guessing they copy pasted or something. They did OCR or whatever. And then I went around searching for 9/11. Oh, there we go.
Not that 9/11.
There were other lists as well. In this one, it wasn't found. So I went through each of the 4 lists, and I kept trying to find it out. So finding out whether or not you have a tariff, at least at the time when we were looking into this, and we looked into this until at least last month, last 2 weeks, is actually fairly non-trivial. Finding
So the reason I made you guys listen to that somewhat boring clip is because she's trying to help Louis with this thing, and she's explaining the process of understanding how it works. She had never worked on this type of tariff in this situation and so forth. And not only is it not advertised on the website, the reason they couldn't find it on the website is because you don't go to the main website where it is tariffs. The first part is there's the bureaucratic tariffs and there's the legislative tariffs. Yeah. When it's the bureaucratic tariffs under Unconstitutional Act Trade Act of 1974, Section 301, the bureaucrats, because that's what they do with bureaucrats, they just give them all the power, get to decide how it works. And because they're lazy or because there's a plan, you can pick whichever one. Conspiracy.
Well, and it's both sometimes, right? I mean,
it's both sometimes. Yeah. And sometimes it's just coincidence because bureaucrats, a lot of bureaucrats don't want to conspire against anything. They just want to pick up a nice paycheck.
Yeah, you're right.
Paid by you.
And also retirement.
Yeah. Pensions forever.
Pensions.
We talked about that on Friday.
TSA coming up on their first 20 years. There are going to be people retiring from the TSA.
Yeah, that just makes me so mad. And she's going through the fact that there's multiple lists. So this is how, even if you support tariffs again, this is how it is hurting Americans, that you're apparently supporting tariffs because American steel workers and coal miners, man. So you've got multiple lists, meaning that there's one list for tariffs. So there's the legislative tariffs that are they're like, oh no, apparently it's not here. There's the bureaucratic tariffs. There's one list of tariffs, and it's just based. This is how like low level like IQ these people are operating at. It's just based on when the tariffs passed. So you've got all these lists, and you've got a list exclusions granted September 20th, July 9th, July 4th, July 14th, July 18th. So we hear about some tariffs, but there's tariffs passing all the time, and you have to go through every single list. Like the further we go into history, the more there's lists for years going back decades of, okay, let me look at all these lists to see if the items that I'm looking for, which of course, as you can imagine with government, is really complicated. It's like this thing, if it's built in this like northern part of China and is made with this amount of rare earth materials in it, or this kind of metal and so forth. And that takes a ton of time. Not only that, none of these lists, which seems like a kind of a nerdy thing, are control F-able, which means you do control F, it pops up a little search thing on your browser, right? And you put a word like 9/11 is what equates to the microscopes he's looking for, as she said, not 9/11.
I got you.
The other conspiracy.
Sure.
Like their images, their JPEGs. You can't search a JPEG. It's not text in a website.
So they go out.
They're upload. So
they're going out of their way.
They either go out of their way or they're too lazy. One or the other.
No. You have to go out of your way to make a JPEG of these things.
It could be potentially that they photocopy and upload JPEGs. Who knows? I'm giving the benefit of the doubt because I can't prove it. Because that's how I operate. But so
if you were a bureaucracy,
I'm just looking at this at 2019, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different lists.
Sure.
Over decades, the average is probably about 8. Though I assume that's maybe 10ish, maybe 5ish, whatever it is. Over decades, all these lists, and these lists are pages, like she's scrolling through them, pages and pages long, like hundreds of pages, and to find if your thing is in there, and so that you can plan whether you're going to get a bill or not, whether you can make a profit or not selling these things, you have to go through all of them. So what does she mention here? Go ahead.
You're telling me there's just hundreds and hundreds and
thousands.
Hundreds and thousands of millions of
probably
billions
tens of thousands. No, maybe not billions, but probably thousands at least
of pages, website pages. They're JPEGs.
Mm-hmm. So it's on a website, and you click on these links, and then those are JPEGs. As if PDFs are that freaking hard in 2019, or websites for that matter.
What a brilliantly evil thing to do. What if I wanted,
I hope it's laziness, but
if I was a mastermind. It's
like the Tom Woods thing's like, I can't prove it,
guys,
but I can't tell the difference.
I'm going to ask somebody who's in the know, right? I'm going to ask somebody who understands computers. All right, hey, listen, how do you guys think we can cut down on people searching this kind of stuff? How do we make it harder for them? Because if I'm a bureaucrat and I'm doing something I don't want people to know about, and trust me, there's plenty of them. I'm not saying they're all there. I'm saying there's plenty of people who are like, yeah, I don't think we want to know. I don't think we want them to know.
So what's interesting is one of the reasons could be them not knowing could make less work for them, because then people don't know to put in applications for exemptions, which we'll get to in a minute.
Or let's
or the more insidious one.
Let's do what's more insidious here. But this is typical of, let's just say, the military, okay? And the agencies, right? Things happen in those realms much like they happen in the economy, right? Like trickle-down economics, trickle-down cool. Some places adopt things first. You got early adopters of things, and then that kind of stuff flows downhill. A lot of times, what happens in military and agencies and things like that is, best practices at the time, like where we are, what we're doing, best practices, things. These guys have a little more latitude and a little more money to go and find the fixes to the problems. Or, they can go out and they can do things very fast.
And I imagine the people who have that, a little bit more of that power, are the ones who tell other people what to do too.
Sure. But most of the time, it's driven by your problem solvers on the ground. I'm talking guys that are, somewhere between 22 and 40 years old most of the time.
Okay.
Right? Like these guys are operators, and they are can do, will do things and stuff that most people cannot imagine. And they've got more energy and more fitness and drive and just, alpha male surging through their veins. And they're like, boom, 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 boom. And they've got no distractions, right? Because a lot of them are single. A lot of them don't have families, or they're not thinking about their families. And I mean, think about that. I don't guess I have even thought about it this way. But like, if you got all the money in the world, and now let's switch gears from that really dominant alpha male in terms of special operations, and you have that really dominant alpha male type in these places like the agencies where we spend money that we don't talk about.
Yeah, they still want to be productive and do great things and be better than everybody else.
Yes, whatever they're trying to do, they're trying to do it bigger, better, more secretly than everybody else, even in that field of craft. Now, when those guys start doing something to say, man, I don't need a lot of eyes on this. How can we wear people out before they get to what we're doing here? Mm-hmm. How do we wear them out? Golly, man. Well, let's give them all that information like we're supposed to do it, but let's make it so damn impossible.
Yeah, that's the same thing as if they sent you tens of thousands of like physical paper. Like and this is a lawyer tactic. During discovery, lawyers will have the opposing side go through discovery and say, we want this, that, and the other. The judge says, okay, you have to give them this, that, the other. And what they'll do is they'll give it to them, but because if they don't give it to them and somebody finds out, they'll go to freaking jail. But they'll give it to them with another like metric ton of other paper, so that the manpower necessary, which kills the people at the bottom ring
real quick,
is just impossible to
exactly
manage.
Right. And so now you've got these guys who have a no kidding viable reason. This isn't a stretch at this point. This is stuff I've experienced in terms of people, in the way they operate inside of these elite type places. Now, let's just say they're going to exhaust most people. These are the same type of people. Just because they're not going out and, doing the impossible, jumping out of planes at 35,000 feet and, being under cold ass water for, months at a time and stuff like that. These guys are just a different type of that. And they're doing the same damn thing over here. And one of those super cool, nerdy things to do
came up with this idea
is this.
Using their powers for evil.
Brilliant.
Why?
It's brilliantly evil.
So, as I said, this is going to continue to be worse and worse and worse. So already this makes it harder for people to even know what tariffs are there, even know when there's exemptions, how to apply and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And then she mentions, if you caught it, that, hey, where did I find this? Thanks to a law firm that for some reason made this information public. How did they do this? They spent tons of manpower, which means money that in my opinion went to a wholly unproductive end. In
economics in one lesson,
to try to put together this in a searchable format. And she was like, I found the list, and I searched on their format, found it like within like 2 seconds, because put 9/11 page. It was some law firm called Sanders, Rosenberg, and Travis.
Right.
And
that
makes me sad.
We're all dead now.
That makes me sad for a whole nother reason, because it's like this whole. So that means that there's these people, her job, and Louis Rossmann's proportion of his time that are wasting their time because of government. Then a whole industry. This law firm, probably most of what they do is in reaction to government things that shouldn't exist. So they're all wasting their time. Like, this is whole industries of people, and then there's the people in the government that come up with the evil idea. The evil ideas. To that waste time. This is stealing not only humanity, like the whole society, of these people's genius, or I don't know, whatever they're good at, and it's in stealing some of these people of their souls. I would say at their fault, because
absolutely.
You don't have to participate in this. But I mean,
the wasting of humanity.
It's incredible. So again, even if you like tariffs, they're hurting Americans.
What a bunch of cowards.
They're actually not being applied because the big companies who are selling the most are getting exempt from it. So you've got the Amazons and big retailers, because the purchasing power, and they can hire lawyers and so forth, and it's a fraction of their business costs. And then they're wasting a ton of people's resources by making them jump through hoops and make it impossible for the little guy. Which, if China's the big evil guy, don't you want to protect the small guy who's trying to make it? Not to mention the free market consequences.
I'll tell you what, Banks. This past week, I kind of had this revelation, and I'll tell you right now. For those people out there on the very liberal, progressive left side, not the progressive right.
I wish those people were attacking Trump for tariffs, but they don't seem to give a crap.
They don't get it.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
No, it's all right. I mean, the guys on the left they've come out and attacked capitalism every absolute way they can. If this isn't the perfect illustration of why this isn't capitalism, then I don't know what is. Capitalism is the free exchange of goods and services between people. This is polar opposite. And I know we talk about corporatism and things like that, but I'll tell you right now, like when I look at these progressive parties, and let's face it, they're both progressive. I don't care, left, right, whatever. They're Democrat, Republican. They're both progressive as hell. I see, the Democrats for who they say they are in a lot of places. They're socialists. They're socialist communists, right?
And some, they're pretty proud of it these days.
Sure. But I'll tell you right now, the right, I'm going to have to agree that they're a bunch of damn fascists, because really
So the proper definition of fascism is the state control of the means of production, and this might not be 100% fascism. We have more capitalism than
you're right
than history has known to a larger
long time ago,
depending on time periods.
Sure.
And that more than a lot of countries, but that doesn't mean that we're devoid of.
But I'll tell you right now, this is fascism, man. Like this is no shit fascism. 51. Damn.
Well, at least I know the timestamp now. Thanks.
I didn't. Damn it.
It happens. It's all cool.
These bastards, man. You guys on the right, as much. And I say right. You guys in the progressive right. You're not the old Republicans. You're something different too.
Well, this is why I wanted to bring it up to some people's attention, because we have certain friends who have ardently defended tariffs, right?
Yeah.
Friends who have very high capability of reason and logic, even if we think they're flawed. This should eliminate your support of tariffs in their current state completely if you are consistent.
That's not. Tariffs are not capitalism, guys.
No. I don't agree with their main statement that tariffs can be good. You wage the war and then you get rid of all tariffs. But aside from that, these things stand for all the things that you say you already oppose.
Yeah, exactly right, man. This isn't freedom. We have given you concrete fact and example after example after example just in this episode alone of how this is so far out of the constitutional means And
the Constitution was violated a long time ago.
Long time ago.
You can't be you can't be half against the Constitution. Like if you violate the Constitution, there's a problem. It's like being half pregnant.
Just simple human interaction, the freedom that we espouse to be here in America, man. We're not even close to that. If you're supporting tariffs, you're supporting fascists. You're absolutely supporting fascism here in the United States of America. It's one term I haven't been real comfortable with throwing around ever, but I'm pretty sure now I'm real damn comfortable with that assessment. Is the progressive right here in America, Donald Trump and boys?
Well, I mean, the left isn't opposing it either.
Oh, no, I know. They're both progressives. Same. But I'll tell you right now, fascists and socialists skipping down the road together here in America.
Well, they're not at polar opposites what people would think.
No. They're on the same side.
They're different strategies of authoritarianism.
Well,
so right on. Like you can't have either of those systems
on our scale
without authoritarians enforcing these things, because people would not act in this way voluntarily. So you have to have force.
Yeah. On the spectrum,
dictators.
Yeah,
and you can't have it any other way, because if the people were voluntarily accepted that system, then it wouldn't be socialism anymore, and it wouldn't be authoritarianism anymore. Yeah. But since we're not, at least Shane and I are not accepting this, and I imagine most of our listeners aren't.
And we
either.
agree, and some people use that kind of that quadrant type of deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
the smallest political test.
Yeah,
thing.
It's okay.
You know those guys are from Georgia, right?
I didn't.
They're from like up in Canton or Ball Ground or something.
Huh.
Yeah.
And my new future home, hopefully soon.
It might be Dalton. It's somewhere around there.
Yeah. At any rate, that spectrum that I often just point to, because it's actually more accurate and simple for most people to understand, is anarchy, no rulers, no government, whatever, right? We just don't have any government overlords as adults deciding what we should do in our life, like we're grown damn children. And then you've got the complete tyrannical state. Okay, socialism, communism is there. Like that's what kills tens and hundreds of millions of its own people, right?
Yeah, because again, if it was voluntary, then you wouldn't need the government in the first place.
Fascists are just different in that same category over there, because what they're doing is saying, yeah, we're going to have this charade, which is kind of...
Well, it's not even a charade. They say that the government needs to control the means of production and make the decisions, and socialism is just slightly more focused on the decisions being a collective, but it's under a false presumption, in my opinion.
Yeah, and so in my view of this, where you've got companies lobbying Congress, spending buku dollars, that are putting their own guys in there, making sure their own guys are elected and their own needs are met. That type of thing in itself, where those are their guys from corporations out there that are running damn government, right? They're still stealing from you by force, and they're doing it through the government. So you got companies buying the people who are going to steal the force. And that's the conclusion, is not only do you have, these guys who are fascists and socialists and communists that are both in the progressive right and progressive left here in America, but you've also got this other group that is hired out to these guys with our money, and that's the muscle. Everybody who wears a badge out there in this day and age is bought and paid for by these guys. And I'm finally seeing it for what it is. They're just bought and paid for it. When you hear this, it's the law type nonsense out of these guys, and the court said so, the court ruled, and these guys aren't ever going to be that check anymore, right? It's not that you have a judicial.
The courts also ruled in Illinois with Abraham Lincoln being the lawyer for the slave owners, like thousands of times not in Abraham Lincoln's position, probably like dozens of times or something, that the Fugitive Slave Act was the law, and to apply it, meaning that the force, the muscle, the people who work for the government would take individuals who should be free and say, oh, here, slave owner in Illinois being represented by Abraham Lincoln. Here's your slave that the law says you should be able to have.
Yeah. So you've got legislators who just come up with asinine things per the companies who pass that crap, and they're like, all right, let's see if this sticks in the courts. The courts are also bought and paid for, and so whatever their political leaning or interest or whoever's keeping them in office are. They're all bought and paid for. And back in the day, the court used to be the king and queen's discretion, right? So now you've taken this whole thing and you've inverted it from where you're supposed to have the representatives of the people and then the executive and then judicial, because they're not all equal. Legislative was given more power than everybody. Executive to enforce the laws that these guys would come up with. And 3, the judiciary, which they called a core of sappers and miners that were basically going to try to undermine the government anyway. I don't even know why they came up with it. It's one of the biggest flaws, I think, that there is in the Constitution.
They
is
came
Article
up
3.
with it but under the premise of contract law, and somebody had to uphold like the agreements between people.
And so in this day and age...
But the problem is that that's been applied to government instead of being applied to individual cases.
So the reverence for the court's rulings these days is higher than ever. You got these guys who are making all kinds of nonsense with bureaucracy in tow, and you got the executive branch. The executive branch doesn't give a damn.
Well, no, but the executive branch, as we prove here, has been given the power to be basically the legislative branch without having to argue because it's one person.
Yeah, exactly right. So these guys pass the law, and these guys say, hey, you got it. Oh, it goes to the courts because one of our subjects out there complained about it. One of our subjects, don't worry about that subject. We've written the laws arbitrary and abstract enough to where we can interpret any way we want. Oh, by the way, we investigated ourselves. These guys in the executive branch are only not guilty. We're gonna just push them off. They're a different class of citizen now. And by the way, he's going to jail or getting killed or
how could you argue? Money. It's like the government said that the executive can do anything he finds appropriate. Citizen, what are you complaining about? I find it inappropriate. What does the law say? It says the executive can do whatever he finds appropriate. Executive, do you find it appropriate? I find the law that I instituted to be appropriate as appropriate. Gavel, person in jail, or whatever. Fine. In this case, it's only fines. It's not like taking money from people has any effect whatsoever.
You can't unsee this. You can't unsee this. Share this with everybody.
So I want you.
God Almighty.
No, I don't want you. I advise you to watch this whole video. And I think for a portion of you, not everybody, you will enjoy watching some other Louis Rossmann videos because he is kind of interesting. I have 2 more clips of his that he just does a better job than I could ever of recapping just how bad the situation is.
I can't wait.
Right here.
1 hour check mark, by the way.
After that particular list. For your case, it was closed, I think, May 22nd or so.
Okay, so just to recap, so to get on the same page. So A, one website says there's no tariff when there actually is a tariff. B, when you do your digging to find the website that actually says it has a tariff, that is a JPEG file that is you need to use optical image recognition to even see. Or what was? Not optical image recognition, something.
Optical character.
Optical character recognition to even see.
So I'll pause real fast. That's probably what the law firm used, which is a complicated software that would scan through every single JPEG that would recognize the characters and through AI like automatically make it into a readable thing that somebody probably had to later go back and verify and correct the errors because the AI isn't perfect. So.
See, there are different lists, so there's not one list of these are all the items that have this tariff on it. There are numerous lists each time new tariffs are put on there, and you have to go through each of those lists after putting it through some sort of OCR because it's not control-F-able. And if you want to apply for an exemption, you can only apply for an exemption within a short time window after that tariff has been put into place so that old established businesses are not paying the tariff, but any new established business that wishes to compete with that first business does pay the tariff.
And it gets even better. It doesn't say so on any of their material. How to navigate this selection, the process.
So just to be clear, let's say people thought that this tariff should be paid. Screw China, screw the people importing from China. The people who are doing the most imports from China are going to be the people who probably are the largest ones. They're probably going to have an attorney on staff for this. They're going to be the people that apply for the exemption quicker. So the person who is most likely to import the most items is going to be the one that avoids the tariff.
Yes. Okay, because look at this. These are
Why?
the guidelines.
I really like his character too. Like he's just seems like a very genuine person. Like why? He's just coming from it from a non-political, like analytical thing. It's like all you guys are doing is harming people. Let's stop. I've got one more clip after that, but as you can see, he introduced. I told you it gets worse and worse and worse. These exemptions that the Amazons of the world get because they have the resources, meaning that people at the lower end don't have the resources to have just a lawyer, just a lawyer on hand, like you and me have, Shane. Like if we get in trouble, we're like, hey, Mr. Lawyer, could you handle this?
Oh, you don't? Rookie.
The exemptions have time limits that are not explained on any website.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, this exemption is going to be put into place. You have 6 months to apply for this exemption. So that means that after 6 months, everybody who's gotten the exemption, the Amazon of the world, have no reason to compete with the people at the lower level because they're paying 25% more because that's a stupid tariff.
So what does that do?
That Trump put in. It lowers competition, means that prices go up. So not only are people getting their money stolen from them, okay, but it means they're getting even more money stolen from them because the price is never going to go down through good competition. And the price is not only not going to go down because people are competing, it's going to go up because why wouldn't they increase the price if you're the only supplier or the only small group of suppliers?
And what happens then?
We have less money.
Well, we have less money, but who also has more?
The government.
Why?
Because they tax those things more. It's like it couldn't get worse, but wait, it can.
It's worse. This dog came and crapped on the other dog's crap. And this other dog came over and that's what this is.
I have his last little clip here. And as you can see, I kind of fanboy over him because I do think he's quite smart and eloquent. Last clip.
I find it really interesting how
I
just find it interesting how the end result of this is not actually it's not even tariffing people. It's simply reducing competition in the specific marketplaces where these tariffs were put into place. Because if you were able to get in quickly enough to file for your exemption, you don't pay a tariff. It's a way of protecting not even a specific government, not even a specific region, but specific companies that got in first from competition from new companies. If there was a way that I could ensure that anybody else entering the repair business had to charge 25 to 30% more money to get the exact same amount of money as I am, imagine that. Imagine if that was the way it was in your business, in your job.
So I would like you to ponder that. I have a feeling, even though I don't know Louis, but I've watched probably 100 hours of his content, and the way he says it, like he wouldn't want to use that. But don't ignore reality, okay? Just because people are in government doesn't mean that they're saints. This is something that Dave Smith says all the time. They are also normal people who have ambitions and...
Wait. They're not. No.
And the inclinations of winning, as Charlie Sheen would say. Okay.
They're not normal. I'll tell you right now. They are an extra.
They are part of reality. That is the reality of the world.
They
people
are
have ambitions.
They are
and
the
people
they
tend
are
to
the
use
humankind.
Yeah.
Most of them are giant narcissists that are not concerned with other people for the most part. And that's the thing. Is you can have these people who are even bleeding heart liberals up there that say, "Oh, I care about other people." If they really cared about other people, they would actually be able to objectively look at things and then say things. They don't care about people.
Well, in the other day, this is in the future. So Friday's episode, I made an argument that I think that people are happy, at least internally, if they don't express it, to be given opportunities to do good. And so that makes me, if I'm being empathetic, which I try to be, feel bad for people who like the horrible things are like shaking in front of their face, like, hey, you can get some money. Mm-hmm. It's like the devil, the government is on one of their shoulders. Okay, the devil's there, the government's there. They're both talking to him like, you can do this and like screw everybody else. And on the other shoulder is this one little angel be like, no, don't do that. That's wrong. And they've got all this stuff to sell, and unfortunately they compromise. But I don't think they feel good about it. Deep down, they might not recognize it, but deep down,
I imagine they get callous after a while. Because here's the deal.
Well, but callousness doesn't feel good either. They might not express it, but callousness feels crappy. Like, I don't know if you ever felt like numb.
Dude.
Like, numbness is not a nice feeling.
Okay, so obviously as a vet, right, there are some things I've become long time ago, I was much more callous. Okay, and I've described this to people over time.
Don't believe him. He's such a softie.
Man, I've definitely gotten softer through wisdom, through trying to do some things that would make you more empathetic.
Having children?
No, kids.
You don't think?
Man, I'll tell you. No, I was. Well, my kids were young. Still very much not non-empathetic, and I didn't really find my empathy again probably till about 2016. I was incredibly. Yes, I was one of those people that would stop on the side of the road, to help somebody in an emergency, whatever the case is. But at the same time,
things that were like universally known as good.
Yeah, well, I think more severe, right? And so what it took to spurn me to action and empathy was bigger things, right? When somebody would complain to me about their life, I just was like, shut up. You don't. Your life is. You got it so good, and I was thankful for my life and I was thankful for things, but I wasn't empathetic with people about anything, man. I was a tin man. I was just kind of cut off from the world, and that's a byproduct of traumatization and all that other kind of stuff, where it's mission,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not anything else. You can't have time for these other things, because if you do, it's going to weaken your focus.
In your opinion?
No, not my opinion. Like, I'm telling you right now, like,
You think it necessarily
you get to that point where you do see this efficiency, you do see operation, you stop seeing any type, like, if you're go from the asset to liability column, you're wrong.
So in a very practical way. Okay.
Yeah, the utilitarian argument.
I would say that in a more philosophical way, if the mission is right, it should only increase good things.
Well, so what I'm saying is like, yes, you're right. You're exactly right. Unless it's just mission too, right? It's just a different mindset. And I think these people sometimes have a very different mindset, right? Where they do such awful, god-awful things, and having been there and felt that way and done that, to continue to just stay in that line of work where you're killing people on the other side of the world.
Well, I think it's like we talked with Deborah, which is in the future for everybody listening.
Yeah.
If you're just like doing party business without following the business plan, which is supposed to be the principles of the party,
Mm-hmm.
like you'll lose yourself.
Sure. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, is like, you kind of lose yourself. And so if these people, they know they're responsible for millions of people's, miserable lives, right? Which they are, and they know they are, because of what they're doing overseas. And I'm not saying every one of them. I'm saying most of those people up there, after at least a term, they know what's going on. That callus that builds up in them, in terms of that mental block, that somehow they've blocked out the empathetical side to feel for these people in the face of great wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a lot of times it's just one of those things. It's a factor of the environment where people throw that thing up and they just press on. It's a weird thing.
That's pretty sad.
Yeah, not only is it sad, it's sociopathic. That's the thing, is a lot of guys who have been there and done that, the ability to separate yourself from that type of lifestyle, like the fact that this is what you're doing, to be able to go out and do things like take life and then return to normal life, sociopathic. It's absolutely sociopathic.
And I guess that's why so many people struggle with the aftermath of that.
Yeah.
It's actually one of the things I'm most grateful for in my life, is I have a very good friend. Her name is Sam, and she doesn't really like politics. She's been very close to it, close to the Ron Paul movement, and it just icks her out and seems to have, in her opinion, all these negative effects on just like basic happiness and enjoyment of life and so forth. And but she's very good friends, and she sees me operate within it and so forth, and she always reminds me not to get too hardened or jaded.
Yeah.
She's like, don't
tough.
let it like rob you of your humanity. And that is something that I would like. I don't tell people what to do often, but like, I love all of you. Don't let life in general, not just in politics, make you too hardened or jaded.
Yeah.
It will rob you of your
go out and be with people
of your humanity.
Yeah, go be with people and see that, and go find go find a brand new group. Just go run into a happenstance of people and talk to them, man. I had the chance yesterday at a veterans lunch, and part of it was not as awesome as I had hoped it was, but there were some people that that I don't run into, and had great talks with some younger kids and all that kind of stuff. But
cool.
It's I mean, I don't know. This was that the last one?
That was the last one. Again, I will include the link in the show notes if you want to see it. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you will use this as a tool, because there's an easy tool to fight against tariffs, but this is almost like an easier,
slam dunk.
An even easier tool, because it's not you don't even have to argue whether the idea of tariffs applied correctly, is good. You just have to say it's being applied the same way the tax system is being applied to prop up elites who are stealing and controlling all of us, and that should not be the case.
I would like to make two more points before we leave the subject.
Sure.
One is, if you don't understand the State Department's role in this as well, through ITAR and EAR restrictions, you should probably look that up. I do a lot of business internationally, and so I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I'll tell you right now, I see the waste and fraud and abuse and the blocking of trade through technology and stuff because of the State Department and where they do and don't want products, goods, and stuff like that going, right?
Is it because national security?
Sometimes.
And if you don't think big business is using lobbyists to use that argument to also impede competition, then you're being naive.
You're crazy. And yeah, you're absolutely nuts. And what was going to be the second point there? I think I blew it. I think I lost it. It was on the tip of my brain.
Awesome.
Banks is awesome. Great. It was a fun topic. I learned something. I think there's a lot more to tariffs than I think this surface level conversation that I've seen out there.
Oh, it's
so bad.
It's probably an endless pit of despair. And
last point. Think about if we did this in the United States. Right, like states or countries, right? Per the Declaration of Independence, they have all the powers of any other state: war, peace, negotiation, and foreign commerce. Okay, every one of them. And then they signed into this Constitution where the federal government's going to handle war, peace, negotiation, and foreign commerce for them. Right now, think about from Georgia to New York. All right, are we gonna? Would you guys accept tariffs from here to there? Those damn Yankees. Those damn Southerners. Oh, man, fear them. They got cheaper labor down there. Look at the cost of living. Look up here. We've got, X, Y, and Z. They got a cheaper workforce, blah, 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 blah. We'd never accept something like that.
So I think there are things tangential to that right now, because you have individual states passing things, especially on like cigarettes and alcohol, to where the states agree together that, hey, we want to do this to our people too. I'm talking about bad things, by the way, people, if you don't understand. And so we're going to respect each other's stupid government actions about how much we tax things that we've decided are vices. Mm-hmm. So,
and kind of a cross down tangent before our last subject, with this whole thing was, I had this idea this week while I was up in Canada, where I am looking at things and I'm trying to be a lot more positive about things. And kind of a lot of times we talk about the genius of the anti-federalists, federalists and things like that. There was a lot that the anti-federalists weren't going to allow to ever happen, right? States were never, ever going to just not be states anymore. Like at the time, they were countries that were part of a country combination compact, right? Like that's how they've looked at it. They didn't look at this as a complete whole nation, for God's sakes. They were very much within their states, different countries. And so as I'm watching this political landscape unfold here in America, while I'm up in Canada, kind of trying to look at it and seeing some things maybe through more of a Canadian aspect. I ran into some people. We started talking about some of the cannabis laws that were up there and everything, and then got me thinking about some things. What's really cool is I'm thinking about another podcast, and I think I'm going to probably call it like the Shane Hazel Plan or the Shane Hazel Project or stories or it's some nonsense. If you've got ideas, throw them at me. But what's happening right now in the States is you're seeing a secession of the states, right? It's and not only secession, but you're also seeing nullification. Like there are all these states out there doing all these things, and I think that has picked up. I mean, I think we're probably a group that sees a little bit more through like the 10th Amendment Center and places like that. But in this counterculture, you're starting to see these things. So as this government fails, right? Like I was thinking about this fallback plan that isn't even written into the Constitution. It just kind of is what it is when the federal government gets too tyrannical, people are just going to say, screw this. As states, no. Cannabis laws? No way, man. Second Amendment laws? No, we're not doing this. And that natural type decentralization and breakup at that point. And I'm not saying we're there. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, I think that if government in general, or just the federal government, but if government in general just ceased to do anything, if nobody panicked about that and just went about their day, everything would be fine.
It would be crazy, wouldn't it?
It'd be fine to just be, yeah, why should I worry? Something that was hindering things disappeared.
It's now out of the way.
I'm just going to go to work.
Unless you're getting paid by them. But for everybody else.
For everybody else.
For everybody else here that's actually...
Okay, so let's say if everybody else didn't panic and the people that worked for the system had, I don't know, realization that they would be more productive doing something else, society would just
be pretty cool.
Just be good. Just go on.
Well,
potentially other governments would take advantage of that. You can argue that. I still don't think it's an argument for a huge government, but
no, not even close. Not even close. We're
we
running
went,
up against,
of course, longer as we would like, but Shane has a
fun story
that is more on the cultural side, less on the political side, and I know very little about it. It's about football, which is one of the reasons I know very little about it.
So it's funny, Banks, is I played football growing up. Like I loved playing football, and I heard somebody talk about something the other day, like, you watch football? And the guy's like, no, man, I was a player, and he's like, I don't watch football. Football was, part of your life. Like for me down here in the South, like it's, it ranks above religion. And
your football community. So during your campaign, I got to like meet like your fellow players and your coaches and like visit the locker rooms where your name was still up there. I think on at least one I was a record holder as a record holder for some kind of bench pressing or something.
Power cleans.
Those alpha males things. And it is the emphasis on family and
brotherhood
and so forth. Like you've got quotes on walls and so forth. It was really, really cool.
Oh man, I'll tell you,
I enjoyed it. And your coaches remembered you and like asked you about your family today and kind of knew what was happening. Yeah. And it was a nice.
And it's family too, because I mean, we've got a coach over there that's he's gotten older. His wife is in failing health, and like that's we all had her as a teacher growing up, and so you kind of there is a family around it. You spent a considerable amount of time, and I'm not like kind of time, like, man, you saw what guys were made of. Like, I mean, that program was legit. Like, I mean, state champions, I think in '96, and then in the Final Four, my last year.
Final Four doesn't count. Only the champions count, Shane. You know that.
I think that football team as a whole probably only lost about 5 games from the time they were like 7 years old. Like, they were awesome, and they were just a fun, great team to be a part of, great community. But at any rate, we're going to be talking a little bit about college football here for a second. Man, my father-in-law and I were talking this morning, and he's like, hey, did you hear about this guy? He's getting suspended. So I hadn't. I have no idea. He plays for Ohio State. His name is Chase Young, and this guy got suspended this past week by the NCAA. And we started talking about this. I know probably a lot of you guys aren't into sports ball and all that stuff, but don't worry. I'm gonna connect the dots here for you. It's probably an area where most of us in the liberty movement probably don't even pay enough attention, and I think it's very relevant in terms of how people are not only divided but distracted, and at our expense. So the NCAA is the organization that obviously kind of sets and regulates sports.
What, something like the
in
National
college.
Collegiate something
Athletic Association, something like that. And so Yeah, this guy, Chase Young, this guy is in the Heisman running as a defensive player. So this guy is defensive end. He's a badass, man. I mean, this guy is really, really something different. So at any rate, this guy accepted a loan in 2018 to fly his girlfriend at the time out to the Rose Bowl to watch him play from a family friend. Family friend. Okay. NCAA finds out that he does this, and he is in indefinite suspension, from what I understand this morning here on a Saturday, that is going to keep him out of the game, obviously, which will probably kill his, chances at a Heisman Trophy. And you're just sitting there going, man, I know there are some real strict rules and regulations for players in college football, what they can do, what they can't do, whether they can have jobs, what kind of, benefits they can receive from people who are out there. And the light bulb goes off in my head. Banks, above all else, what is college football?
It's a game.
Yeah. Who are colleges for the most part?
Young people.
No. No. Think admin.
Oh, they're bureaucrats.
Yeah, they're part of the state. Who are paid with what?
With taxpayer dollars.
Taxpayer dollars, right? So you got a college.
So there are private colleges and so forth.
Sure,
but that's a minority, and even them, a lot of the money they're getting is through federal.
Yeah,
loans.
Most of the big football teams are state colleges, right? I mean, let's face it. And so you got these bureaucracies who have this bureaucracy apparently within them, the NCAA that manages all these athletes and have all these rules about who, or I should say, about how the players have to accept or can't accept, income into their lives, whether it's loans, whether it's gifts, whether it's benefits, or, having a quote unquote job out there. I was like, all right, this seems a lot more insidious now than what it was originally. Okay. For a state organization at a college level to be involved in an industry now, okay? Let's face it. College football is an industry. Do you know what college football made in 2017?
I know, in the billions, maybe.
$1 billion. Okay? $1 billion. And for these guys to go out there and say, hey, man, you can't accept a loan from a friend to fly your girlfriend out to watch you play a ball game, and then he paid it back.
So are they saying it's kind of it's those rules about boosting, right? You've got people who will support and give money and gifts to certain players, so they go to certain teams or something.
Yeah, well, that's what they say it is.
Yeah.
All right, that's what they say it is.
This is from the outsider view. Like,
sure.
The most I know about football might be the show Friday Night Lights, which is an awesome show, by the way.
Yeah.
And they talk about that. So
it's because they want all the damn money. That's what it is. They want all the damn money. People have called these guys a cartel. I had no idea that the NCAA is a cartel that absolutely exploits these kids.
Well, at least it's voluntary.
Sure, it's voluntary.
It is.
Kind of.
No, there's no kind of. It's completely voluntary.
Well, yeah.
Nobody's forcing anybody to go to college, and nobody's forcing anybody to play football.
I agree. You're right.
This is one of the arguments that people use for government intervention, because it has to get bad sometimes before it gets worse.
You're right.
I think they should all drop out, and there should be something new. But like player choice and watcher choice and supporter choice and fan choice, like nobody's forcing them.
No, I agree. Nobody's forcing them. But one of the easiest ways into the NFL is through college ball, right?
I'm not saying there's not difficult decisions to make. That's just part of life.
What I'm saying is,
saying there's no physical coercion.
There are state-sponsored programs. There are state-sponsored programs.
The state makes it much worse. Yes.
Yeah. There are state-sponsored programs now that if you are willing to help these state-sponsored programs, you're going to have a better chance at getting into a a much higher paying position.
So as the government usually does when they distort price signals, right? They let failing institutions continue to exist because they've subsidized something. Then the failing institution has a leg up. It makes it harder for competition to work. Absolutely. So that is a form of coercion, but it's not from the institution we're pointing at. It's because government is involved.
Exactly right. And the amount of money, like I'm going to look at some of these top 20 type organizations out there that in terms of money that they bring in through college sports. And this is just college football. This is the most profitable college football in the
franchises
SEC.
we're talking about?
Yeah. So this includes the Big 10, Pac-10, SEC, Big 12, ACC, SEC. So Texas is number one, $92 million a year. $92 million. Tennessee, $70 million. LSU, $58 million. Michigan, $56 million. Notre Dame, $54 million. Georgia, $50 million. Ohio State, $50 million. Oklahoma, $48 million. Auburn, $47 million. Alabama, $46 million. Oregon, $40 million. Florida State. So you get the idea. These guys are making tons.
Are all these guys under the NAACC?
NCAA.
NCAA.
Yes. These guys are all under the NCAA. All of them.
So you know what's really funny?
What's that?
And I'm glad I saw this because then I can contribute to the subject besides just my reactions. Is this was on October 29th, the Associated Press broke a story that says the NCAA will permit athletes to be compensated for their names, images, and likeliness. Board of Governor of the NCAA says within hours of that going out.
Yeah.
So you've got these different levels of people who just want to pillage productivity. Within hours of this going out, you have a senator. His name is Richard Piece of Crap Burr. Maybe.
I think you're right. I think you nailed the pronunciation.
I'm just seeing that. Says if college athletes are going to make money off of their likeness while in school, their scholarships should be treated like income. I'll be introducing legislation that subjects scholarships given to athletes who choose to cash in quotations, to income taxes.
Wow.
You
piece of dog, man. What a jackass.
He's the reason though is because you've got a lot of people who pay attention to sports who are on both sides of this argument, right? So he's placating to people who are like, no, this shouldn't happen because tradition. That's the only argument that I can see is like, because we don't want things to change because we're
making tons of money.
No, the people who are taking tons of money are this minority. There are tons of people who just because low IQ, the way things are better, or like, no, things can't change.
Well, look at the industry built around this, right? I mean, you look at video games. You look at,
you realize that his argument here, making money off of their likeness. That's how everybody makes their money. Maybe not exactly off of their likeness of being beautiful and so forth, but they're like
skill sets
off of themselves.
Yeah.
Anybody making money off of themselves, you basically, it's the whole premise you support anyways, which is taxation. But he's trying to demonize them. People making the money off of themselves? What? How dare they?
Yeah, it's weird. There's some.
I hate that.
Listen to the actual legal part of this real quick. This is from Business Insider, and I found this little snip. I wanted to play it just so you know even more how. Boy, I mean, it kind of just goes.
Are these people twisting their minds into contorted positions?
Well, it's that arbitrary stuff that we talked about, arbitrary and absolutely not in your favor.
To education. So instead of cash, student athletes will be allowed to receive computers or scholarships for postgraduate degrees. In each trial, the NCAA has argued that amateurism keeps it from becoming an anti-competitive trust. So, what is amateurism? In page 4 of the NCAA Division I Handbook, under the heading, The Principle of Amateurism, the NCAA declares, student athletes shall be amateurs in an intercollegiate sport, and their participation should be motivated primarily by education and by the physical, mental, and social benefits to be derived. To clarify that, Oliver Luck, the NCAA's former executive vice president of regulatory affairs, said in a speech in 2015, it would be a bad mistake to create campus employer-employee relationships with student athletes. Paying college athletes would distract in a very significant way from pursuing what they really need to pursue, an education. And we need to emphasize the value of that education. But let's think about that for a second. Are student athletes able to receive the full value of that education?
No, I don't think college athletes are given enough time to really take advantage of the free
education.
It's not free education.
Yeah,
They're
but
giving a lot of themselves.
At any rate,
some of them give their bodies to get their free education.
yeah, you know what happens to those guys as soon as they get hurt? You're off scholarship. A lot of them. It's like
pretty sure they don't care much about
I don't
those
know.
people's education.
I look at an industry that is a state industry that receives $1 billion.
State-sponsored industry. It didn't start as a state industry necessarily.
But it is now a state industry, right? Yeah.
State-sponsored.
Yeah, we're
those things would exist in a free market without the state.
Yeah, we're paying for
and people need to know that. Hey, if the state didn't exist, the thing you love would still exist, and it'd be so much better.
Maybe
like none of the things that we like when we argue against government doesn't mean that we don't want a lot of the things that people would consider normal. Like I want roads, I want I don't know, safety, I want phones.
I want
some sports. I don't hate sports. I want all the normal things. I'm just saying government only makes it worse.
I want to start an 18-year-old to 24-year-old football league, man. That's what I want to start. Just have a league where these guys can come and play their asses off, get sponsors, get paid. Man, I'll tell you right now, if you got lots of money out there and you're that guy that comes up with this, where these guys don't have to put up with school, man.
So I think the guy who
there's probably laws against it.
No, but
gaming.
Well, to some degree, maybe there might be like hurdles, but the guy who owns the WWE, the wrestling thing, who we've talked about once for some reason.
McMahon. Yeah, they're very politically active up in the Northeast.
Yeah, I don't really like him, but he's I think starting some kind of competing
college level
football
really
team. I think it's competition with the NFL, but you know.
Huh. Anyway, I thought I just brought this up, being it's a college football Saturday here, and after having that discussion, and part of the government I don't pay attention to. Because I just find them repulsing. Yeah, I was like, man, boy, that's pretty rich.
That's crazy.
It's a lot of money. And it's a lot of dudes that are getting screwed and sacrificing a lot of their body, man.
And the government is necessarily making it worse with their subsidies
And
because they distort, not distract, price signals, and price signals are necessary.
That's right.
And lead to good outcomes.
We're closing up with anything else?
Quest.
Yes, Quest.
We had planned to talk about Manifest Destiny. I think we don't have time today.
Hour 34. If we could do it quick.
Yeah, sure.
Manifest Destiny.
Maybe after this discussion, we'll have a desire to go into it more one day. But Quest had sent an email a while back. We never got to this one. He wanted to know our opinions on Manifest Destiny. So I pulled up some definitions.
Okay.
And the one I prefer is the one on Wikipedia. And it says that Manifest Destiny, and when I say I prefer, they're all the same idea. This is just the one that I think illustrates it the best. Manifest Destiny was a widely held belief in the 19th century in the United States that its settlers were destined to expand across North America. There are three basic themes to Manifest Destiny. Number one, the special virtues of the American people and their institutions. Number two, the mission of the United States to redeem and remake the West in the image of agrarian America. And number three, the irresistible destiny to accomplish this essential duty. What's your opinion on
I don't know, man.
Destiny?
It sounds like somebody trying to just coin a term. His name was John O'Sullivan. He coined the term back in 1845 to describe the essence of that mindset. Yeah, I mean, kind of the Second Great Awakening is what they were writing around. And, Manifest Destiny, there are people, I think, out there like Glenn Beck who would contest that or kind of juxtapose Manifest Destiny against what's the term I'm looking for? Divine Providence, right? Tomato to me. I think there's a certain thing that happens when you allow people to be free. And I say allow people, God, when people are free, for God's sakes, when they exercise that spirit and freedom to explore and to live in balance with nature, at least in balance.
What's the term in the speech? One of your first speeches, I think, you ended
Divine
by
Providence.
Divine Providence,
Yeah.
which is there a difference with manifest destiny and divine providence?
Divine providence is I mean, the way I understand divine providence is that it is this, basically this force of God that just happens to, kind of, I hate to use the word, but manifest itself. I mean, it's divine providence is this is what is supposed to be happening, right? And
so in some ways, do you differentiate it from fate? Fate meaning something that's unavoidable.
No, I think when you look at principle over time, right? I mean, when you look at what happens when people adhere to natural law, you see some amazing things. I mean, the Great Awakening is, Second Great Awakening, if they're going to call it, or the American Awakening, is just that. You had people who were free to their own devices, their own education, their own, their own food, their own safety. These people lived freer than most of the people on this earth ever lived, right? And it's not that there wasn't any danger. It's not that they didn't fail. It's not that some of them didn't starve to death. It's not something. I mean, it wasn't glorious and beautiful, but look what it led to.
Well, it depends how you define glorious and beautiful.
Well, it was a natural life, right? That's glorious and beautiful.
Like I've said this a few times recently because I forget. I think it was Joe Rogan who was like natural things aren't inherently good.
No, you're right.
Right. So,
but I think,
but I think dying can be glorious and beautiful.
Well, sure.
And I've said before, quoting Edward Snowden, like I think he was asked like, "What's the purpose of life?" No, he was asked some other question, and he said, "Well, there are things worth dying for." Mm-hmm. And there was somebody asked a question on Facebook, a friend of mine a while back, like, "What's like, give me something. What's the most positive thing you can come up with?" And I was like, that there are things worth dying for. Yeah. Like that, to me, that's the most beautiful thing ever.
Sure. Yeah. And really there are things not worth living for, right? Like if I'm going to be...
I think everything's... I don't think life is never worth it.
Well, I'm saying is there are fates worse than death, basically. I mean...
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that's different than things not worth living for.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going out on my feet, basically, is what I'm saying. And so, yeah, I think there's... I mean, divine providence, manifest destiny, I think... one is more indicative of a God, and manifest destiny is more indicative of, I don't know, maybe not God up front, right? Like, or I say God, like nature's God, natural principle. Manifest destiny, like it was one of those things where you're gonna have an outcome of what you deserve, not you specifically, but kind of more as a species, right? In this context, if we're using it for Western
in this
expansion,
definition, they're saying that manifest destiny is like we were made to do not just things, but these specific things. Which, like, I have a problem with the specific things.
Yeah,
but I do think that people are made to have a purpose. I don't know what that purpose is. I think it's probably individual, and I think that all the purposes of people, the true purposes, are good things.
I think when you find people thriving, you find society thriving.
I would love to know people's opinion. I personally don't. Do you believe in fate? Like there is a pre-planned way.
That you're never. No,
maybe not never, but there's at least a portion of things that are pre-planned and that you can't avoid, whatever you do.
Boy, we're gonna get into a real philosophical. Long. This is
okay. We don't need to get too long. I don't believe in fate. I think that if you have free will, which is freedom. If you believe in God, you believe that he gave that freedom because then your decisions had value if you decided to do good or bad.
Yeah, you start getting into interdimensional time and space. And
I don't think that manifest destiny is in line with that, because it would be like apparently the definition, which is different than divine providence, the goal of Americans was to accomplish this goal to spread American values and so forth, which didn't really even exist back then. And apparently it was used to justify the war with Mexico, and a bunch of other things. So.
Yeah. I don't know. I think divine providence is more along the lines of people fulfilling a larger plan, right? Like as we get less brutish and barbaric and ape-like and stop beating the hell out of each other and killing each other and things like that, we're going to enjoy better society, more comfortable lives. I think, like that's more of your divine providence, to the point where you finally have people understanding that the individual is key, and go ahead and do whatever the hell you want as long as you're not hurting people. Like just those natural laws. The more that society in general comes to that final expectation of other people in society, I think once you get to that point, that's when divine providence starts to kick in, and you start to kind of see the major theme of where humankind should head.
So it'd be more like a general term, which would make it a tool, like most things. Like it can be used for good or bad. This last example that I think is quite interesting is that John Quincy Adams, apparently, which was like a president in the mid 1800s, I think.
John Quincy was Adams' son? Yeah.
Was originally used manifest destiny to justify certain things, but apparently, even being an original supporter, he changed his mind and said that it was not good because it was promoting expansionism, which mean that it would expand slavery into Texas, because America would go into Texas, take it away from Mexico, and because America had slavery, that would promote slavery, which is
bad.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So it's a tool like anything else. I do think there's a purpose to life and like meaning and things that people are called to. But if manifest destiny is like this specific meaning, I would disagree.
Huh. Interesting.
So,
yeah. Thanks,
Quest. I hope that says it kind of answers your question, and I would love to know
if we missed the mark. I mean,
the listeners' opinions, if they believe in manifest destiny or divine providence or fate. Like, comment on either this YouTube video or our Facebook post for this podcast episode, or you can send an email.
That's it for the day, right?
We got through everything in the end.
Boy,
good job,
I'll tell you
Shane.
what, it's almost
high five.
Yeah, high five. Almost 3:20 here in the afternoon. Got a couple more hours. You have some pork butt, Banksy, if you stick around.
Oh, pork butt. His pork butt is quite good, guys. If you
it's real good.
If you want to know.
Shane,
if I made you hungry, then
Shane can
you're
cook.
welcome.
I'll tell you right now, Shane can smoke and
my
smoke
favorite thing is
smoke.
still your laksa.
Yeah,
that was
laksa,
that
ribs, pork butt, you name it, man. I'm hungry and thirsty all at the same time. I think it's time for us to go and take in some sustenance.
If you have enjoyed the show as much as I enjoy Shane's cooking, please consider leaving us a review on iTunes, on the Apple Podcast app, or on Facebook. We will read it here on the show. I mean, imagine the possibilities. You get to appear in front of hundreds to thousands of people, and you get to write whatever you want, and we'll read it. Mm-hmm. We'd prefer it be nice things about us or constructive criticism, but you can say anything you want.
We're going to read the bad ones eventually.
Absolutely. There are no bad ones yet.
That's going to be great. That's gonna
because
be
why
like,
would people say bad things?
It's going to be like mean, what is it, mean tweets? That's going to be great.
If you would like to have input in any other way, you can reach us at info@rebellionpod.com. That's the email, or you can comment on any of the social medias, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and say, hey, guys, I want you to talk about this. We will get to it at some point, even if it's a month late, like the Manifest Destiny conversation. Sorry, Quest.
I may read mean tweets. If somebody hashtags mean tweets in a rebellion tweet, I may read the mean tweet.
Oh, even if I find it despicable, I think that would be an interesting conversation. We don't
like fun.
Yeah, on that point, if you have somebody you know who would like to debate us and disagrees on an issue, or if you disagree on an issue with us, I enjoy debates.
Yeah.
Because I think my ideas are right, and if they're not, I want to know.
And there's two of us. We can beat one person. No problem.
No. Damn it, Shane, you're scaring them off.
I'm just kidding. I think we'll be fair and impartial, but fair. But at any rate, yeah. If you got a couple nickels to rub together, want to go out there and become a patron of the show, patreon.com/rebellionpod. We could definitely use that. And as always, if you want to bring something to our attention, info@rebellionpod.com.
This has been your place for peace, liberty, free markets, a little bit of sports talk, and some good beer, which I finished.
All right. Love you.
We need you.
Peace.
Don't hurt people and don't take their stuff.